I'm Josh Klein.
And I'm Elise Hugh.
We host a podcast from Accenture called Built for Change.
Every part of every business is being reinvented right now. That means companies are facing brand new pressures to use fast evolving technologies and address shifting consumer expectations.
But with big changes come even bigger opportunities. We've talked with leaders from every corner of the business world to learn how they're harnessing change to totally reinvent their companies.
And how you can do it too.
Subscribe to Built for Change now so you don't miss an episode.
And here's your prescription.
I know just the pharmacy to get this filled.
Who are you?
A pharmacy benefit manager. A middleman your insurer uses to decide which medicines you can get, what you pay, and sometimes even which pharmacy you should go to.
Why can't I go to a pharmacy in my neighborhood?
Because I make more money when you go to a pharmacy I own.
No one should stand between you and your medicine. Visit phrma.org/middleman to learn more. Paid for by Pharma.
This is Optimal Finance Daily, episode 2472, How to Buy a House by Seth Godin of Seth's.blog. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. Let's get to today's post as we optimize your life. How to Buy a House by Seth Godin of Seth's.blog. Actually, how to think about buying a house. You don't see a lot of ads trying to sell you on spending too much money on a house. It's more subtle than that. The marketing is all around us and has been for years. The enormous social pressure and the expectations that come with it lead to misunderstandings and confusion. Here's my advice to someone in the market. Number 1, in an era where house prices rise reliably, which was 1963 to 2007, it was almost impossible to overpay for a house. It was an efficient market, and rising prices cover many mistakes. Investing in houses in the US was a no-brainer. More leverage and more at stake just paid off more in the end. This consistent multi-generational rise taught us more than an ad ever could. Buy a lot of house with as little down payment as you could. Number 2, a house is not just an investment. It's a place to live. This is the only significant financial investment that has two functions. Things like cars and boats always go down in value. So most of the time, if you're investing, you're doing it in something that you don't have to fix, water, fuel, or live in. You shouldn't fall in love with a bond or a stock or a piece of gold, because if you do, you won't be a smart investor. The problem, as people who sell and fix and build houses understand, is that you just might fall in love with a house. What a dumb reason to make the largest financial investment of your life. Number 3, the psychology of down markets is irrational. Rising house prices might be efficient. Many bidders for a single item lead to higher prices. But when there aren't so many bidders, irrational sellers don't lower their prices accordingly. So inventories get longer, and it's easy for the prospective buyer to think that a certain price is the right price because so many people are offering houses at that price. Just because someone offers a price, though, doesn't mean it's fair in a given market. Number 4, along the same lines, anchoring has a huge impact on housing prices. If someone offers a house for $800,000 and you think it's worth half that, you don't offer half that. No, of course not. The price is a mental and emotional anchor, and you're likely to offer far more. Number 5, the social power of a house is huge. When you buy a big house or an expensive house, you're making a statement to your in-laws, your family, your neighbors, and yourself. Nothing wrong with that, but the question you must ask yourself is, how big a statement can I afford? How much are you willing to spend on personal marketing and temporary self-esteem? Number 6, debt is an evil plot to keep you poor. If buying a bigger house or even a house with a living room or a garage is going to keep you in credit card debt, you've made a huge financial error, one that can cost you millions. Number 7, by the time you buy a house, you probably have a family, which means that this is a joint decision, a group decision, a decision made under stress by at least 2 people. Probably people that don't have a lot of practice talking rationally about significant financial decisions that also have emotional and social underpinnings. You've been warned. Perhaps you could add some artificial rigor to the conversation so that it doesn't become a referendum on your marriage or careers and is instead about the house. Number 8, if you have a steady job, matching your mortgage to your income isn't dumb. But if you're a freelancer, an entrepreneur, or a big thinker, a mortgage can wipe you out. That's because the pressure to make your monthly nut is so big, you won't take the risks and do the important work you need to do to actually get ahead. When you have a choice between creating a sure thing, average piece of work or a riskier breakthrough, the mortgage might just be enough to persuade you to hold back. Number 9, real estate brokers by law work for the seller unless otherwise noted. And yet buyers often try to please the broker. You'll never see her again. Don't worry about it. Let me be really clear about what I mentioned here, just in case you'd like to misinterpret it. When a prospect sees an ad or goes to an open house, she's about to interact with a broker. That broker in almost every case is hired by the seller and has a fiduciary responsibility to the seller to get the very best price for the house. There are exceptions like buyer's brokers, but those brokers, as I said, note that they are representing the buyer. How can you represent someone without telling them? Many brokers like to pretend to themselves that they're representing both sides. And while that's a nice concept, that's not the law. And number 10, you're probably not going to be able to flip your house in 9 months for a big profit. Maybe not even 9 years. So revisit bullet point number 2 and imagine that there's no financial investment, just a house you love, and spend accordingly. I'm optimistic about the power of a house to change your finances, to provide a foundation for a family and our communities. I'm just not sure you should buy more house than you can afford merely because houses have such good marketing. You just listened to the post titled How to Buy a House by Seth Godin of Seth's.blog.
I'm Josh Klein.
And I'm Elise Hugh.
We host a podcast from Accenture called Built for Change.
Every part of every business is being reinvented right now. That means companies are facing brand new pressures to use fast evolving technologies and address shifting consumer expectations.
But with big changes come even bigger opportunities. We've talked with leaders from every corner of the business world to learn how they're harnessing change to totally reinvent their companies.
And how you can do it too.
Subscribe to Built for Change now so you don't miss an episode.
And here's your prescription.
I know just the pharmacy to get this filled.
Who are you?
A pharmacy benefit manager. A middleman your insurer uses to decide which medicines you can get, what you pay, and sometimes even which pharmacy you should go to.
Why can't I go to a pharmacy in my neighborhood?
Because I make more money when you go to a pharmacy I own.
No one should stand between you and your medicine. Visit phrma.org/middleman to learn more. Paid for by Pharma.
In my area, real estate prices are inflated, so I wouldn't buy now, but I'm glad I bought my house in 2018. I've seen data that supports that on average over long periods of time, renting and owning work out to be about the same cost-wise. With owning, your mortgage is the least amount you will pay per month. Your property taxes will continue to go up, and you're on the hook for maintenance and large repairs, like roof, HVAC, etc. But you could potentially lock in a low interest rate if you buy at the right time, and you don't have many of the same restrictions as renting. With renting, your rent is the most you'll pay, but you face the reality of being priced out by rising rents. So for example, in New York City, I had to move almost every year because the rent went up $100. You might also disagree with your landlord on required maintenance, like when one of my New York City landlords refused to get an exterminator for our cockroach problem. It can be harder to rent with pets. I now have 3. And you're restricted on making the place your own. For example, often you're not permitted to paint. Buying a primary residence is a lifestyle choice, not an investment. I think the issue is that most people make the choice to buy before they're financially ready, and so the costs become unmanageable. Not only should you have the 20% down payment and be able to afford the mortgage and property taxes, but you should also have the cash reserves to deal with the large expenses that come up. I think buying a house is the last thing you should do. First, get out of high interest debt, save your cash reserves, get a good head start on retirement investments, and then buy a house if it's really that important to you. But this whole cultural norm around homeownership is very misguided in my opinion. And that will do it for today. Have a great day and start to your weekend. Thank you for listening, and I'll be back here reading to you tomorrow, where your optimal life awaits.